How's it going, everybody? Nerds Rising here, and welcome back to the Nerd Cave. In today's video, we are still bringing out the spice, and we're using a double poison line today in the Open Great League. And also on the team, we're going to have a Hitmontop lead, just to ensure that we're triple weak to Confusion and Psychic. So let's pray that we don't see any Confusion users, but this team, I had a lot of fun with this team. It definitely is a team for Spice, definitely not a team for climbing, but I did get some very impressive wins. And the reason I use this team is, first of all, I brought the Hitmontop because I've been seeing a lot of Dewgongs and Alolan Sandslashes. I'm sure you guys have seen, there's been a ton of content out right now, and guys like Humslice and Jonkus and even Rise and Zionic, pretty much everybody has a Sandslash and a Dewgong video. So yeah, you're going to be seeing them, and Hitmontop is probably the bulkiest non-Medicham fighter in this league right now. It's very, very bulky, and it has some nice moves as well. So I kind of wanted to build a team around Hitmontop, actually, and rather than using the basic steel types that you normally see paired with things that are weak to fairy, I decided to bring out double poison, and I wanted to give Seviper a try as well since it's got that Poison Fang buff. And then Dragalge is actually a surprising sleeper pick in the Open Great League as well, because it has some very nice matchups against the meta. It actually beats Noctowl, and it fully walls Lantern as well, which is really crazy. So, to be honest, I think that Dragalge was probably the GOAT of this team, as you guys are going to see. So, let's get right into the battles here. I do have quite a few battles for you today, and I probably will divide this one into chapters as well, because I did face quite a variety of leads. As you guys can imagine, and as you guys are probably seeing yourselves, the early season battles are always filled with variety and spice, which I love, because it gets really, really stale once you start hitting Elo later on. So let's get right into the battles here. We've got a Shadow Venusaur on the lead. Very, very bad. It's running Razor Leaf as well. So Dragalge, as you guys will see in this video, is going to be the safe swap. And Dragalge, unfortunately, here is met with an Abomasnow, but I did build up to a potential Outrage here, and we do get a shield because of that. And that is really all I can ask for at this matchup here, because there's no way Dragalge can really take back Switch here. The Gunk Shot just takes way too long to get to, and the Powder Snows and Weather Ball combination just super spammy. So we take our shield advantage here, and now we're going to fully farm down with the Hitmontop, and this is where you guys are going to see how bulky Hitmontop is. We take that Energy Ball very, very well, and we actually were still in the yellow health after the Energy Ball landed, which is pretty crazy. And now they bring back in the Shadow Venusaur, but Shadow Venusaur does not appreciate the Stone Edge. We aggressively bring in the Seviper, we farm down, and the opponent has a Vigoroth in the back, and 2-shield Seviper absolutely is going to close this game out now. I think in the 1-shield it probably would lose to Vigoroth. It is extremely glassy. As you see, these counters from the Vigoroth has already gotten us nearly to half health just from the counter damage alone. And yeah, this probably would take me out if I didn't have that second shield. But that's the way an ABB style team works. You use your safe switch, which is the Dragalge in this case, to get either switch advantage or shield advantage in the mid game. And that's exactly what happened. And then your Backmon will sweep up the back line. So works like a charm in the first game. Second game, we have a Nidoqueen lead, which is really, really bad. We're very weak to this across the board. I bring in the Seviper here, knowing that I can get to the crunch just before they reach the Earth Power, and the opponent very wisely does overfarm. But as you see, we have gotten this thing fairly low now, which is nice. They do take us out with the Earth Power there. Really nice play so far by the opponent, from not baiting to making sure they maintain switch. But now I bring in the Dragalge, and the opponent stays in a very long time. They let their Nidoqueen get extremely low, and then they pivot into the Obstagoon there, which is very nice for me, because they very heavily misaligned their switch clock here. They waited a very long time to switch out. So now they're going to be switch locked in if they come back in with the Nidoqueen. And also they're very, very low as well. So we actually farm them all the way down here with the Hitmontop. I do shield here, knowing that even if they're at the back-to-back, my counter does go through, and they have a Shadow Alolan Sandslash in the back. So a very winnable game for the opponent. He was running Nido and then 2 things weak to fighting. So what he should have done there is, when I brought in my Seviper, he should have immediately brought in that Sandslash and preserved health on that Nidoqueen, because by letting the Nidoqueen get low, effectively I was able to take it out with my Hitmontop, and then his A-Slash just gets destroyed in the back. So Pidgeot lead here in the next battle, and even though this is not a great matchup, Every single Pidgeot likes to bait, so I call the Feather Dance there. I bank the energy, and now I aggressively bring in the Dragalge, and the opponent overfarms massively and allows me to get to an Aqua Tail before I get debuffed, which is huge. They do shield it as well, and now, again, this could be a Brave Bird, but it's not going to be a Brave Bird. It never is. I call it again, and we're up a shield, and the opponent brings in a Swampert, which is perfect. Again, the Dragalge safe switch is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, and that is luring out either the ground or steel type that the Seviper does not want to see in back. So we are debuffed, but we still actually do a decent amount of chip damage to the Swampert. It's about at half health now, and I do have a lot of energy still on my Hitmontop, excuse me. So I can come in and either get their last shield here or just straight up take out the Swampert. And they do not want to go down both shields, so they let it go. They bring back in the Pidgeot, but Seviper comes in, farms all the way down, and they have a G-Fisk in the back. And this is basically a GG here because I can get my Crunch off here on the CMP tied to their Rock Slide. And what I was worried about here, I'm actually going to shield this because I think what would happen is if I let this go, it doesn't KO, but then they probably farm me down. So instead, I commit one shield, and again, I go for the CMP tie here, get the Crunch off, and they're either going to do a ton of damage here, or they're going to shield, and they do shield. And now I can let my Seviper go down. This Rock Slide will KO, so they don't get any extra farm, and now I can save my shield for the Hitmontop. And even if they would have let that Crunch go on the Seviper, then I could have just saved my shield for the Hitmontop anyway, and just farmed them down and not even thrown a move. So GG there. A little bit tricky endgame, but we managed to get it done. And next battle, another bad lead. I saw so many bad leads with this team. And again, Dragalge Safe Swap comes in. And Dragalge, in case you guys haven't noticed this yet, is very, very bulky. Even if this is a Crunch, we would live it. So I let it go, and they bait. And I'm fully expecting the opponent here to shield this, not really knowing the counts for Dragalge. And they do shield the Aqua Tail. And we're able to get them very low and get a shield. And now I'm actually going to come in and commit to a very aggressive counter down here with the Hitmontop because Gyarados, the Aqua Tail really isn't going to hit that hard. And again, Hitmontop is also very, very bulky here. So we tank that pretty comfortably, and we farm all the way down. And what do they have in the back? They have a Wigglytuff in the back. And now I'm thinking that this could be a double Fairy team. Just based on the team comp, it would make sense, and it is a double Fairy team. Not a double Charm team, but for some reason there also, Seviper definitely wins CMP here, so the game lags, because for some reason I lose CMP, but yeah, Seviper is going to sweep this game, and I think I even test this just to make sure Seviper wins CMP, and yeah, I farm up to the CMP tie again, and we win it, so I'm not sure how that happened. Seviper is very, very glassy and hits extremely hard, so it really is going to be winning CMP against just about everything in this league, so GG there. And I think we're about halfway through now, so I hope you guys are enjoying this so far. And again, another terrible lead, Noctowl. And here, I actually just go straight for the close combat because Stone Edge is a little bit of overkill. A close combat wouldn't one-shot, but the counters after the close combat would take out the Noctowl. So I decided just to go for the close combat there. They shield it, so I'm going to shield. And now I'm going to bring in the Dragalge here, recognizing that I was debuffed, so I kind of had to get out of there right away with that Hitmontop. So I come in with the Dragalge again. Dragalge tanks that Shadow Ball very comfortably, and we massively overfarm here. And at this point, an Aqua Tail will be enough to take out this Noctowl. And we do take it out. And the opponent has a Medicham in the back. And this is actually going to be pretty tough because Medicham may be able to commit to the full farm down. They probably will shield this, expecting the Outrage, and they do shield. I will chip them now with this second Aqua Tail, but after fully farming me down, they're going to have enough energy to one-shot one of my backline with the Psychic here. So what I decided to do here, super risky play, but I am going to call the bait here. And the opponent does bait with a Power-Up Punch. That is massive. And we make it to the Poison Fang. And the opponent's going to get all that energy wasted. And they have a Lantern in the back. And at this point, we have a shield and 2 Mons. And yeah, they recognize it's over and they surrender there. So GG. Definitely safer just to full send the nukes, guys. I say this a lot on this channel. And if you follow Jamie Finn, you know that he's not about those baits either. But especially when the opponent only has 1 shield, I think baiting is just super risky. Because a lot of times people are just going to be inclined to no shield, things like that. So I believe in this game, we had a Dewgong lead, and they safe switch into a Heracross. And unfortunately, again, Gunk Shot is just such a high energy move. We do not make it to the Gunk Shot, but the opponents typically do shield just because Outrage is cheaper, so that would have been enough for an Outrage if we were running it, which I believe Outrage is the recommended moveset. So we do get a shield from the Dewgong anyway, and at this point, the opponent has a Trevenant in the back, and again, with 2 shields, I love to call baits because opponents love to bait when you have 2 shields. So I call the Seed Bomb there, and at this point, even if the opponent shields this, I can just save my shields for Hitmontop, Stone Edge the Trevenant, and then close combat the Dewgong, but they do actually let that go. And now, yeah, it's definitely over because I can just get this Poison Fang off and then fully farm them down if I want to. And they shield the Poison Fang as well, which is not the play, so I'm going to 2-shield flex on this opponent. I was in a mood. I was playing these games pretty late last night, and what you guys are going to see in a couple battles here is there's a couple games against opponents that just really annoyed me. So I was in a mood where I was BMing people, I was 2-shield flexing on people, and yeah, you guys are going to see, I don't think, is this the battle? This might be the battle where I was really annoyed. No, I think it's coming up though, but Chesnaught lead here. It's not a terrible matchup for Hitmontop, but we have 2 better responses in back, and again, when you're using an ABB style team, when you face a neutral lead or a negative lead, you do want to safe switch just to draw out something that your backline loses to, like this Walrein, for example. And finally, we get to land a Gunk Shot, and since they no-shield that, I'm actually going to shield myself, farm down, and now I will have switch advantage. And switch advantage is going to allow me to align my Seviper to their Chesnaught in the endgame. And they bring in a Lantern to this Dragalge. And Lantern, like I said in the intro, is fully walled by Dragalge. It doesn't matter if they go for Surfs, Thunderbolts, Sparks are also resisted. We fully walled them, so they're not going to be able to farm me down here. And they're not using their shields for some reason. And look at that, just from Dragon Tails and Aqua Tails, we have gotten that Lantern into the red health, and they're forced to throw. And at this point, we can just come in with the Hitmontop, tank all this energy, and just save our last shield for the Seviper. And yeah, the nice thing about this team is the Chesnaught lead there is beaten by both our Dragalge very, very hard, and then the what am I trying to say? The Lantern is also fully walled by the Dragalge. So Dragalge walled 2 of their Mons, and that is one thing that I found with the Dragalge is that due to its unique typing, it does have a lot of play as like an anti-meta pick currently. Now, obviously, with the Sand Slashes and the Dugongs running around, you do have to be a little bit cautious about safe switching it, as in this battle right here, because if the opponent has a Dewgong in the back, you're just really in a rough spot. Now, I think if you were running Outrage, this wouldn't be as bad, because if I was running Outrage, I could have actually thrown that Outrage before they got to their Icy Wind, but I wanted to commit to the Gunk Shot, and again, I realized I wasn't going to get there, and since they debuffed me, they knew that even if I did have Outrage, they could live it, so that's why they no-shielded. So I think the better play would have been, if you are going to use Dragalge as a safe switch, would be to build up to, I believe, I want to say it's 7 is the Outrage, and just throw it right away. Just bait with the Aqua Tail right away if you're not running the Outrage, and that probably gets a shield from the Dewgong, because after not getting a shield advantage from this mid-game, as you guys are going to see, they have the A-Slash in the back, and without switch advantage, there's just literally nothing I can do. I bait here, but the opponent very wisely is going to no-shield this, and yeah, I already knew the game was over at this point, but as you're going to see, I'm just going to let these moves go. I'm not even going to shield them. But yeah, that mid-game, Dewgong safe switch into Dragalge. Definitely, I think the play is to not even try to build up to the Gunk Shot, because there's just no way. It takes like at least 10 Dragon Tails to make it to a Gunk Shot. So unfortunately, you don't get to land that many. I'm just running Spice. That's the only reason I'm running Gunk Shot. You do like to get that massive damage occasionally, so excuse me, guys. So sorry. Allergies, as always, wrecking me. I believe we had a Talonflame lead in this battle, and I safe switched into the Seviper this time because Dragalge has a pretty decent matchup against Talonflame. So I bring in my soft counter, and they meet the Seviper there with a Kingdra, and this is not a super clear response, so I decided to shield here last second, just because I recognized that my Poison Jab went through and I could win switch. And even though we're going to be in even shields, Dragalge can actually tank a Brave Bird here from full health, so I'm definitely going to be no-shielding this, and of course, we get baited anyway. They always try to bait, I just recognize that, especially in the lower ranks, guys. The lower you go, people are just going to be more likely to bait. And here, it doesn't really matter if they bait me or not, because unfortunately the Hitmontop basically had no play against this team. So I just bring it in here. I let myself get as low as possible, just in case they decide to no-shield this. I don't want the Talonflame to get more than one Incinerate, and he does end up shielding it. And now, again, I am absolutely going to be calling this bait, because opponents just love to bait. If he Shadow Balls me there, I lose. And the safer play is just to Shadow Ball. And let me just pause it real quick. Let's just go back, guys. I just get so annoyed with all the baiting. There's just no reason to bait, because we're just going to go back. We're going to go all the way back. Sorry if you guys aren't a fan of pauses, but I get so annoyed at unnecessary baiting. And you know what? We're in rank 13, so I totally get it. People don't necessarily know that you don't need to bait, but let's just count the moves here. There's 2 Incinerates now from the Talonflame. So Talonflame, we know, has 2 Incinerates. So Viper comes in, we take Switch here. Let's see, we're just going to go forward a little bit. We're going to shield this up, and then the Talonflame comes back in after this move lands. We're going to take this Kingdra out. Talonflame's going to come back in and get one more Incinerate here, I believe. Yeah, they got one more Incinerate. We bring in the Dragalge. I believe he goes one more there, so he's at 4. So when he throws the Flame Charge here, he's going to leave with 1 residual Incinerate, and that's 2 now. So he's only 1 away from the Baybird. So he comes in with the Trev here, and Trev has so much energy, and he does very nicely here not bait, recognizing that Hitmontop's pretty bulky. So this is the right play. Farms all the way down, so he's easily past a Shadow Ball by the time he farms me down. He's probably at least maybe 2 past the Shadow Ball. And he's coming into my Dragalge, which is not at a move that can KO him. And again, he's only 1 Incinerate away from the Brave Bird here. So the play here, if you're the opponent, full send the Shadow Ball, because even if I shield it, he still has a ton of energy, and he probably forces me to immediately throw. And then all he has to do is just do 1 Incinerate and get rid of me. So as you see here, my win con in this situation is to call the bait, because if I shield a Seed Bomb, the Talonflame just Brave Birds me, and I throw the Gunk Shot right away here. And as you're going to see, an Aqua Tail from that health range definitely does not KO the Trevenant, so I'm forced to go for my big move. And when I come into this Talonflame matchup, I'm energy dry, and that's 1 Incinerate right there. So the opponent's at the Brave Bird. The opponent, if he goes straight Shadow Ball on the Trevenant, he wins that game. So basically my only win con there was to call his bait. So sorry for the big tangent there. It's just like, in situations like that, guys, if you're me, you have to play to your win con, and the only win con for me there is to no shield. And if I was in the expert rank and that happened, the opponent probably full sends the Shadow Ball. Just the reality of the situation. But anyway, rant over. We're into a Togetic match here, and Togetic is a very, very bad core breaker for this team. As you see, I say switch into the Dragalge there, and the opponent just straight takes me out before I even make it to the Gunk Shot, which is really unfortunate. But the nice thing here, the fact that the opponent didn't switch out told me that they probably were pretty weak to poison in the back, and they, for some reason, switch out of that. I guess they kind of had to switch out of that, otherwise I would have just farmed them down, but they are very weak to the Seviper, and unfortunately, again, Hitmontop just has literally no play against this entire team. They're triple strong against Hitmontop, so I bring it here into the Toxicroak just to sack it, recognizing that it can't do anything against the Togetic, really. So I'm just going to sack it here, and I do get a shield advantage, which is going to be huge for me here, because now I have a 2 shielded Seviper, and we do have a little bit of play here. Now, the opponent's going to make a mistake here. He has so much energy, and rather than throwing that energy and getting shields, I think he had 2 Mud Bombs there. Instead of throwing the Mud Bombs, he's going to switch out of that matchup, bring in the Togetic, and he gets fully farmed down. And even if he had the move there, which he did, even if he threw the move there, Seviper wins CMP against the Toxicroak there. So the play there, if you're the opponent, again, I'm going to pause just for a second, throw both of your Mud Bombs, then you switch into your Togetic, and then you throw the move on the Togetic. But yeah, sorry. Again, I was just in a mood playing this. Oh, here's the one that put me in the mood, guys. This is the battle that put me in the mood. Jellicent leading to Hitmontop. Again, terrible matchup. Obstagoon comes into Dragalge, and this is actually a Lick Obstagoon as well, which is crazy. You don't see too many Lick Obstagoons, and this is another matchup where Dragalge just shows its bulk. Even though we're not resisting the counters like we normally would, we're still going to pretty comfortably win this matchup just because the Dragon Tails do so much damage. So we're going to come in. The opponent does let this go. We farm them down. We now have switch advantage, and they come in with a Slurpuff. So it's a Charm Slurpuff as well. So very good that we were able to win switch, because now our Seviper will be aligned to this Slurpuff. But again, my Hitmontop, they're double strong against my Hitmontop. And this is something I noticed quite a bit. Despite Hitmontop being very bulky, a lot of teams had multiple answers for like a pure fighting type. And this, guys, this dang Jellicent, as you see, I no-shielded the first move there. Again, recognizing that the Hitmontop really has no play. And I'm just fully stacking it at this point. I'm just like, Shadow Ball me. Go ahead and Shadow Ball me. And the opponent is just going to go straight Bubble Beam after Bubble Beam after Bubble Beam. This is the third Bubble Beam that the opponent has thrown. And I'm just massively over farming here. And now I'm going to bank nearly 100 energy. And again, I'm just like, you know what? He's throwing 3 Bubble Beams. Go ahead, throw the 4th Bubble Beam, opponent. 4 Bubble Beams now. And at this point, I'm getting fairly low. I'm almost at half health. And I've got 2 shields, so I kind of have to shield. 5th Bubble Beam there. We're going to go for the crunch. And at this point, I just know the opponent's just going to be only throwing Bubble Beams. Maybe he's only single moved, but it doesn't make sense to run a single move Jellicent with only Bubble Beam. So I'm sure that this opponent, as Jamie Finn would say, is just a huge masturbator. And that's Bubble Beam number 6, by the way. Finally, we're going to crunch this Jellicent here. And I'm not even going to throw a move on this Slurpuff because I was so annoyed here. I'm like, you know what? You're going to get Stone Edge to the face for baiting me 6 times in a row. And Hitmontop on 1 HP, Stone Edges the Slurpuff. And yeah, after that game, you guys are going to see the last battle of this video. I was just an ass, and yeah, I BM'd the opponent really bad in the last battle. This battle, we had a very nice lead. The game lags a ton. They bring in a Shadow Venusaur. I answered the Shadow Venusaur with the Dragalge. Again, this is a very nice matchup for Dragalge. We fully wall the Venusaur. Even though it's a Shadow, that Shadow Frenzy Plant really didn't do too much damage. And then the opponent's like, well, Frenzy Plant didn't work. Maybe I'll try Sludge Bomb, and Sludge Bomb still resisted. And finally, again, I think this is only one of maybe like 3 gunk shots I landed, but the opponent comes back in with their Shadow Walrein. They know they can pretty comfortably live an Outrage, but the gunk shot does so much. Oh my goodness. And that's perfect. Because it does so much, we're able to farm them down before they even make it to an Icicle Spear. And here it's actually going to be a little tricky still, because they have a Shadow Quag with 2 shields, but I am ahead on energy. So I'm very carefully going to throw my moves here on CMP. First Mud Bomb is 5 Mud Shots. Second one will be 4. And once I win CMP on the 4th here, I now will be able to let this go and then get to a move of my Seviper. Because if I shield this Mud Bomb here, if I shield this, their next move is going to be in 5 again, and they will outpace me to my next close combat, and then they would outpace my Seviper to a crunch, so I have to let that go. And by throwing on CMP, I prevent them from over farming. And again, just to show you how important it is to throw on CMP, I massively over farm past the crunch and then throw on CMP again, just to show the opponent that I win CMP. So I BM them there a little bit, but this is not even the worst of the BMing. This last battle is going to be some very unclassy BMing by Nerds Rising here. So opponent has an Obstagoon lead, and for whatever reason, the opponent stays in with the Obstagoon against my Hitmontop, and they obstruct, and all that the obstruct does is just give me more farm. And they come in with a Shadow Swampert. I'm at the back-to-back close combats, and this is looking very rough for the opponent, and they let it go, nearly one-shots, and now we pivot into the Dragalge to reset that debuff. And the opponent has a G-Fisk in the back. And this game's already over. I've got 2 shields and a Hitmontop, so this game's over. And they shield the Aqua Tail. And at this point, I'm just going to let my Dragalge go down. I don't care if they Earthquake me here. Does not matter. They do actually Earthquake. I was definitely expecting them to bait there. But respect to the opponent for not baiting there. And I get my close combat off. And all I really have to do is just shield this and then throw the close combat, but I was in a mood, guys, so instead, I let it go, and I bring in the Seviper here. I've got 2 shields to 0, and I'm gonna go for the triple resisted Poison Fang, Poison Sting beatdown on this poor opponent. So we're going for the Poison Fang. Triple resisted. It does literally no damage. And I'm not even going to throw a Crunch. I'm going to just throw another Poison Fang here and just shield their move and then fully farm them down with triple resisted damage. And we're going to shield. At this point, I was pretty convinced that the opponent was a single moved, yeah, because they're still going for EQs, and we fully resisted Poison Fang, Poison Sting, or whatever the heck, Poison Jab is what I'm trying to say, them down for the win. So yeah, that was a little bit savage on my part, but man, that bubble beaming opponent just really... Anyway, yeah, we're just going to end the video before I say something that gets me kicked off YouTube. So anyway, guys, really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely, again, this is a team for Spice, not for climbing, so I don't want anyone to go out there and use this team and get slaughtered and then leave me comments being like, wow, thanks for the team suggestion, this team sucks, I went 0-25. Well, here's your disclaimer to not use the team right here. And yeah, that being said, again, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you for all your support recently, and if you're a new viewer of my channel, please do consider subscribing, because the more subscribers we can get, the more Pokemon my wife will let me play.